Caribbean Newsline is brought to you by the Barbados Tourism Marketing Inc.
A whistleblower alleges a British political consulting firm illegally harvested personal data of Trinidad and Tobago citizens. Our top story in Caribbean Newsline for Wednesday, March 28th. From the CMC News Center in Bridgetown, I'm Dawn Paris. Good evening. A British political consulting firm that boasted of interference in several international political campaigns allegedly mined the personal data of Trinidadians, and the allegation has led to a wide-scale audit of government agencies in the Twin Island Republic. The announcement came on Wednesday from Attorney General Faris Al-Rawi amid the scandal involving Cambridge Analytica. The firm is accused of using massive amounts of data on 50 million Facebook users to formulate political advertising on the Donald Trump election campaign. Al-Rawi told Parliament that a whistleblower, Christopher Wiley, told UK lawmakers that the company did work in Trinidad and Tobago in 2013 under the former People's Partnership government led by then Prime Minister Kamla Persad-Bissessar. The project involved accessing raw internet service provider data for the entire country to monitor what people were browsing. Al-Rawi said evidence before the UK House of Commons committee detailed the project carried out by AIQ as the affiliate company of Cambridge Analytica. Contractual documentation and emails from AIQ's project in Trinidad and Tobago with the Persad-Bissessar government were referenced, and the whistleblower said in his testimony that he understood the data acquisition was illegal and that there was a total disregard for the law. The Attorney General told Parliament on Wednesday that must be investigated, particularly coming on the heels of allegations made during the 2015 election campaign.
The Interception of Communications Act, Chapter 1508, at Section 6, strictly prohibits the interception of communication in the manner alleged by the whistleblower in testimony given before the Digital, Culture, Media and Sport Committee of Commons of the British Parliament. The Computer Misuse Act, Chapter 1117, at Section 3, prohibits the unauthorized access to data. The alleged acts committed by Cambridge Analytica and its affiliates, alter egos, potentially constitute breaches of the laws of Trinidad and Tobago. Madam Speaker, in the election campaign of 2015, citizens will recall there were wide-scale receipts of unsolicited, personalized political messaging from entities promoting the United National Congress. It is therefore incumbent upon the Office of the Attorney General, in discharging duties under the Constitution of Trinidad and Tobago, to cause an audit of all government ministries, statutory authorities, state enterprises, and the National Security Council to ascertain whether any contracts were established, whether any payments were made, and whether any services were rendered by the named companies Cambridge Analytica, Aggregate IQ, and the Strategic Communication Laboratories Group, and or any of their affiliate, alter ego companies or entities. I shall ensure that this audit includes the application of a keen eye for any masked transactions through nominated or trustee entities to hide the true identity and nature of any services provided.
Al-Rawi also said the government would cooperate with international investigative agencies that are conducting parallel investigations into the matter.
Accordingly, Madam Speaker, I am to inform this Honourable House that yesterday I instructed the state's attorneys in the United Kingdom to take immediate steps to secure the evidence and materials provided by persons including the whistleblower Christopher Wiley. It is also reasonable to expect that the committee of this Parliament with responsibility for matters of national security will take due notice of this troubling affair and engage in suitable inquiry and interrogation of all relevant witnesses, including whistleblowers here and abroad, as is actively ongoing in the committees operating in the legislatures of the United Kingdom and the United States of America. Madam Speaker, this government will do all in its power to investigate this very important matter, to unearth whether the rights of the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago have been infringed, and to hold all such persons responsible for breaches of the laws of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago properly accountable.
Well, Prasad Basessar was not present in Parliament when the Attorney General made the statement, but earlier this week she described as fake news claims that her United National Congress had engaged the services of Cambridge Analytica. She also called on the Keith Rowley administration to provide evidence. In other news, Trinidad and Tobago has raised eyebrows for refusing to give support to hurricane-ravaged Dominica to get an ease in paying fees to the Organization of American States, the OAS. The Eastern Caribbean nation recently sought to get a waiver on its contribution to the OAS in light of its rebuilding efforts following the devastation caused by Hurricane Maria last September. But at the last meeting of the Permanent Council of the OAS, Trinidad and Tobago's ambassador to the organization, Anthony Philip Spencer, insisted that Dominica should still pay its dues, even if payments are deferred or made in installments. We get more from Akash Samaru of CNC3 News.
In the aftermath of Hurricane Maria, the island of Dominica is in the process of rebuilding. Last year, in a matter of days, the Caribbean country saw its economy collapse dramatically. At the last meeting of the Organization of American States on March 23rd, its ambassador explained the uphill battle.
The post-disaster needs assessment also concluded that Hurricane Maria resulted in total damages of US $931 million and losses of US $382 million.
In light of that, the Dominican ambassador asked OAS members to support a proposal to waive the island's quota contributions to the OAS for the years 2018 and 2019, as it tries to get back on its feet. And while almost all of the OAS members agreed to waive the fee, which amounted to just around $15,000 to $20,000 US, one country did not.
Trinidad and Tobago
would wish to offer its expressed reservation again here, but consistent with the position adopted in other multilateral fora in the hemisphere. This delegation again wishes to offer for consideration, propose for consideration, the option of the deferral of payments of contributions, and where possible, the implementation of a payment plan that is subject to annual review.
And while the motion still passed despite this country's reservations, TNT's position did take the Dominican ambassador by surprise.
I'm a little bit, I must say here, I'm a little bit unsure of one of our member states' concern, and I see clarity from this council.
Over in Jamaica, the state of public emergency that was declared in part of the parish of St. Catherine earlier this month is one step away from being extended until July 3rd. The House of Representatives on Tuesday approved a resolution brought by Prime Minister Andrew Holness for the extension. The resolution must now go to the Senate. The state of emergency in the St. Catherine North Police Division took effect on March 18th, and in making the case for the extension, Prime Minister Holness gave an update on the status of crime in the area.
There has been no report of murders in that space, and I knock on wood for that. There has been no report of serious crimes, and there has been no report of abuse by the security forces.
The opposition People's National Party raised no objection to the extension, but the party's spokesman on national security, Fitz Jackson, stressed that a state of emergency is an extreme provision that should only be used in extreme circumstances.
And indeed, the high levels of murder over recent times represent an extreme situation. But, Mr. Speaker, we did not arrive there overnight. It was allowed to fester and fester, and we are where we are. While we have no objection to the state of emergency, and we will not object to the request for the extension that is before us, because it's a temporary measure, Mr. Speaker, by design and by provision in the Constitution, the urgent question on every Jamaican's mind: what happens after?
Meantime, a legal problem has developed regarding the state of public emergency in another parish, St. James. The Emergency Powers Review Tribunal has raised concern that there are no signed detention orders from the National Security Ministry for people who have been detained under the measure. And it says this has implications for the detainees as well as the operations of the tribunal itself. Under the regulations of the Emergency Powers Act, the National Security Minister should sign an order authorizing the detention of persons deemed a threat to public safety. But speaking on a program on Radio Jamaica, Chairman of the Emergency Powers Review Tribunal, Ian Wilkinson, said there have been no such signed orders.
The tribunal is quite concerned at the fact that no detention orders or any other order which is allowed under the Emergency Powers Act and the regulations thereunder, both of which are authorized by the Constitution of Jamaica. No orders have been signed at all by the Ministry of National Security in relation to either detention or restriction. The non-issuance of such orders in some respect can hamper the work of the tribunal, particularly as there are divergent views as to whether the tribunal has any jurisdiction to act at all in the absence of any such orders.
Wilkinson has therefore called for clarity in the matter. Coming up in Caribbean Newsline, the St. Lucia government revokes the citizenship granted to 6 people under the Citizenship by Investment program. The details of that story and more after the break.
Barbados, renowned for its pristine beachfront and fantastic weather, continues to leave quite an impression on newcomers to the island and returning visitors. The Caribbean island, quite popular as a vacation hotspot, is not only beautiful due to its natural aesthetics. The island of Barbados continues to grow in popularity because of unique connections developed with our people, our culture. We can't wait to welcome you.
Where did you drop us today? We there right here. Every year from now on, we there right here. Uber Soca Cruise. Not miss us ever again.
Tell me something, what's your name?
My name is Terrence Charles, aka Mr. C4, aka representing the C4 Promotions family. don't know.
Is this your first Uber Soca cruise?
First and not the last. Trust me, brother. Next year, I done book already, you know.
You done book already?
I book. They didn't even open booking yet, but I book already.
The St. Lucia government has revoked citizenship granted to 6 people under the controversial Citizenship by Investment Program, CBI. The Alan Chastanet administration says those people committed acts that may bring the island into disrepute, but gave no other details. A notice posted in the official St. Lucia Gazette and signed by Chastanet showed the 6 had their citizenship revoked on March 19th. It did not state whether the people in question had been residing on the island at the time. Under the CBI in St. Lucia, as in many other Caribbean countries, citizenship is provided to foreign investors who make a significant financial contribution to the socio-economic development of the island. Last month, the Chief Executive Officer of St. Lucia's Citizenship by Investment Unit, Nestor Alfred, said 259 people had been granted citizenship under the program, but he acknowledged that citizenship had also been revoked in some instances. The Belize government will embark on a nationwide consultation with stakeholders to discuss and share ideas and possible strategies to address the crime situation in the country. A statement from the Ministry of National Security said it plans to meet with all interested stakeholders over the next few weeks. Meetings will be held with the Belize National Teachers Union on April 11th and the Belize Chamber of Commerce and Industry, the Belize Council of Churches and the National Trade Union Congress of Belize on April 13th. Earlier this month, Prime Minister Dean Barrow, who expressed his administration's anger and shock at the recent wave of killings in the country, said that members of the Belize Defense Force would join the police patrolling the streets in a bid to curb the criminal activities. Over in Guyana, President David Granger announced on Wednesday that police have been given instructions to probe the circumstances under which 3 men were fatally shot by law enforcement authorities earlier this month. In an official statement just after the March 13th shooting, police said the men were killed during an exchange of gunfire after they trailed a customer who had just exited a bank with a large sum of money. Since then, one person who claimed to have witnessed the shootings has disputed the police account. And President Granger said a report on the incident had been submitted to the Minister of Public Security, Kemraj Ramjatan. He said he also expects that in keeping with the country's laws, a coroner's inquest will be held into the matter. Still in Guyana, the government is being advised not to invest in a local oil refinery. The advice has come from British professor Sir Paul Collier. Royden James of HGP Nightly News reports.
In May 2017, a feasibility study found that it will cost Guyana some $5 billion United States dollars for an oil refinery here. Since that time, persons have been weighing the pros and cons of the country paying to refine its oil against having its own oil refinery. One view expressed by the government was to enter into a joint venture with Suriname, and others flouted that the country should enter into an agreement with Trinidad to refine the country's oil. British professor of economics Sir Paul Collier has cautioned against the establishment of an oil refinery, saying that it is not a good idea for Guyana.
I think it would be a big mistake to waste money refining this oil. Refineries are hugely capital expensive, so they burn up a huge amount of capital. Remember, the whole oil industry is going to peter out, so in 2040 you might be left with a great lump of technology on your shores which has no use.
He said the government will learn as the oil and gas industry develops what are the best investments, taking into account the unpredictability of the market. He also advised that the government avoids subsidizing gas.
Whatever you do, don't go down this road of subsidized gas, subsidized petrol. That way, society ends up basically drinking what it should be accumulating as an asset.
Sir Paul also spoke of the idea of having a national oil company.
I think it's not a foolish idea to establish gradually some sort of national oil company that doesn't itself do the offshore drilling. I mean, that's a very fancy game. But just becomes a sort of minority equity partner, but by virtue of that it sits inside the tent and learns what's going on. And you build some expertise in the country, and that makes it easier to just, reduces the big asymmetry of information between what they know and what you know.
And ahead in Newsline Sports, still no word on who will form the West Indies squad for the historic T20 series against Pakistan that begins in just a few days. Stay with us.
Despacito. Guess what? They're doing it again and again and again. Yep. Louis Fonzi's song featuring Daddy Yankee and Justin Bieber won Contemporary Latin Song of the Year at the BMI 2017 Latin Music Awards. Now, Fonzi was also honored with the BMI President's Award at the ceremony, which took place Tuesday. That was last Tuesday at the Beverly Roadside Hotel in Beverly Hills. Now, special honors.
I just come for the rum. I ain't come to be judged. I just come for the paint. I just come for the water. So if you never begin until Jah will be done, I'll hold my ground. The weak part of things are your blessings. Simple things, them are your blessings. Your blessing. Simple things are your blessing. And you don't notice your blessings.
This is the plaintiff, Brian Dark. He's suing for medical expenses and pain and suffering as he was attacked and put in a coma over cookies. He's seeking $945. This is the defendant, Lucy Hernandez. She says she owes nothing, and since Girl Scout cookies are seasonal, they should be glad that's all that happened for eating the last 3 of her Samoas.
Continuing with sports now, tickets for the highly anticipated 3-match T20 series between Pakistan and West Indies went on sale in Karachi on Wednesday. But with the first match set to bowl off on Sunday, Cricket West Indies is yet to confirm the series or announce a squad for the historic tour. The series will represent the first time a major test-playing nation will tour Pakistan following the 2009 terrorist attacks on a Sri Lanka team bus, in which several players were injured and several members of the security forces killed. Since then, Pakistan played their home series in the United Arab Emirates. The series against the Windies comes as the Pakistan Cricket Board looks to revive tours of a country once marked by the volatility of separatist violence. But to date, CWI is yet to even acknowledge the staging of the series, which goes off in 4 days, or make any public pronouncements on the security situation in Pakistan. There has also been no word on the availability of key West Indies players, especially with the Indian Premier League, the IPL, starting April 7th. Key members of the squad, like Captain Carlos Brathwaite, Chris Gale and Evan Lewis, are all expected to turn out in the IPL for their respective franchises. All 3 represented West Indies in the ICC World Cup qualifiers in Zimbabwe, which ended last Sunday. Doubt also remains over the availability of Sunil Narine after he was reported for an illegal action during the Pakistan Super League this month, while Kieron Pollard is similarly in doubt after pulling out of the T20 series in New Zealand last December, and also making himself unavailable for the qualifiers. West Indies last toured Pakistan 12 years ago when Brian Lara's side lost a 3-match test rubber 2-0 and conceded the ODI series 3-1. Meanwhile, the Pakistani selectors have named 3 uncapped players in the 15-man squad to face West Indies. Asif Ali, Hussein Talat and 17-year-old Shaheen Afridi have been rewarded for their form in the recent Pakistan Super League. But 36-year-old veteran Kamran Akmal has been ignored despite plundering 425 runs. His age and his poor fielding were reported to be the reasons behind his non-selection. Shaheen is a left-arm pacer who impressed at the recent Under-19 World Cup in New Zealand and was also outstanding in the PSL. The 26-year-old Asif is an explosive lower-order batsman while 22-year-old Talat is a highly regarded all-rounder. The squad will be led by regular skipper Sarfraz Ahmed. The T20 internationals will be played on April 1st, 2nd and 3rd. Legendary former West Indies captain Sir Vivian Richards says the Caribbean men will need to improve their batting if they are to compete at next year's World Cup. The 66-year-old, considered the most feared batsman of his generation, said West Indies got away with totals during the recently staged ICC World Cup qualifiers that would definitely be punished by the bigger teams. He said, quote, "There were a few matches that I believe that they came up short in terms of runs, but at the end of the day, they had the bowlers to defend whatever they scored. But in the big league, they will need to score more runs," end quote. Sir Viv was a member of the Clive Lloyd-led Windies team, which won the inaugural 50 overs World Cup in England in 1975, but he's best remembered for his sparkling 138 in the second tournament 4 years later as the Caribbean side successfully defended their title. He was captain of the side which lost the 1983 final to India, also in London. And finally, Cayman Islands artistic swimmers will leave for Jamaica on Thursday as action in the Carifta Games swings into high gear this weekend. It's the first time they will send a synchronized swimming team to a regional meet. Cayman 27's Jordan Armaniz reports.
It's awesome. I don't know what else to say.
Caymanite Synchro head coach Alyssa Moberg just days away from her team's first ever Carifta Championships. And the swimmers, well, they're all feeling about the same.
I'm nervous, but I'm really excited.
I'm really excited.
Excited, but I'm also really nervous.
Captain Jade Barnes, a member of the Carifta swim team as far back as 2014, says her team is up for the challenge.
I think we're ready. It took a lot of hard work getting to where we are now, but I think it's going to pay off and we're going to do really well.
But with 7 countries competing in Carifta's first synchronized swimming competition in over 3 years, Coach Moberg says they've trained to reach the podium.
Nobody knows what to expect at this point. The kids have risen to every single challenge that I put in front of them. I set the standards really high for a reason, and they've risen to the challenge. They've put in the work.
And athletes are hoping that work will help build the future of artistic swimming in Cayman.
And that's sport. We'll be right back.
Caribbean Newsline is brought to you by the Barbados Tourism Marketing Inc.
Barbados, renowned for its pristine beachfront and fantastic weather, continues to leave quite an impression on newcomers to the island and returning visitors. The Caribbean island, quite popular as a vacation hotspot, is not only beautiful due to its natural aesthetics. The island of Barbados continues to grow in popularity because of unique connections developed with our people, our culture. We can't wait to welcome you.
A recap of the major developments of this day. A wide-scale audit of government agencies in Trinidad and Tobago announced after a whistleblower claims a British political consulting firm mined the personal data of citizens. And in sport, still no word on who will form the West Indies squad for the historic T20 series against Pakistan, which begins in just 4 days. And that's Caribbean Newsline. For news and sports around the clock, log on to comnews.com. We'll be back here again tomorrow. But from all of us at CMC News, thank you for watching and have yourselves a good night.